I cursed this village. Just as you have accused me wrongly, may you too face false accusations and feel the same helplessly.
Once upon a time, in a big bright village, filled with singing birds and tall dancing trees, there lived a young girl named Atinuke. Atinuke was a special child with a big smile and shining eyes. She was the only child of the richest couple in the village. Everyone in the village knew her and said, "Look, there goes Atinuke, the gem of our village." Atinuke's mother and father loved her very much. They had a big house, the biggest one I could see, with many rooms filled with laughter and love. Around the house, there were farms with lots of fruits and vegetables, and fields that stretched wide under the sun. Our father owned the biggest store in the market, where people came from all over to buy things. They had shining jewels that twinkled like stars and soft clothes that felt like the touch of a cloud. Atinuke's parents gave her everything she needed, and her heart was full of joy. Everywhere Atinuke went, she went with her mother and father. They took her to colorful markets, to sparkling rivers, and to visit friends in nearby villages. Everyone who met Atinuke loved her because she was kind and sweet, just like her parents. But the best part of Atinuke's house was a secret, a big secret. There was one room that nobody ever went into. Even Atinuke didn't go in there. It was a mystery room, and it made her home feel like a castle with hidden treasures. So in her big beautiful house with her loving mother and father, Atinuke's life was like a wonderful dream. Now our story begins with a girl whose life was filled with blessings and a secret waiting to be discovered. One sunny day, something very sad happened. Atinuke's mother and father went on a trip across the big blue river to visit some friends in another village. They were traveling in their canoe, the one painted with beautiful patterns and bright colors. Atinuke didn't go with them because she was feeling a little sick, so she stayed at home resting. But that day, the river was trickier than anyone thought. It swelled and twirled faster and wider than usual. Atinuke's mother and father tried to steer their canoe carefully, but the water was too strong. Suddenly, with a big splash, their canoe tipped over and capsized. It was a very big accident, and oh, it was so sad because Atinuke's mother and father didn't come back. They went to the stars above, leaving little Atinuke all alone. When the news reached the village, everyone felt a great sadness. Atinuke was very, very sad. She missed her mother and father so much. Her tears fell like raindrops, and her smile was gone. The villagers who loved her parents and her came to her house. They brought her food, hugged her, and cried with her. To show respect for her mother and father, the people in the village did something very special. They decided to close the market for a few days. No one bought or sold anything. Instead, they remembered all the good times they had with Atinuke's parents. They talked about how kind and generous they were and how they made the village a brighter place. The big bright village was quiet during those days, quieter than it had ever been. The trees seemed to whisper softly, and even the birds sang gently. Everyone was mourning, showing their love for Atinuke's family and hoping to comfort her in her big loss. And so the village stood still, and the little girl with a big smile, now filled with sadness, learned that sometimes, even in the brightest places, sad things can happen. But her village was with her, holding her hand through it all. In Atinuke's big beautiful house, where every room was filled with laughter and love, there was one room that was different. It was the forbidden room. A room so secret that even Atinuke, the little princess of the house, was never allowed to peek inside. This room had a big old wooden door with a heavy lock that glinted in the sunlight. The key to the lock was hidden, and nobody talked about where it might be. The walls around the door were draped in colorful clothes, making it look mysterious and important. Now, this wasn't just any room. Oh no, it was a room wrapped in whispers and shadows. The older servants in the house, those who had been there since Atinike was just a baby, knew something about this room. They knew that it held a secret so big that it could scare the stars away from the sky. Long ago, before Atinike was born, there were curious servants who wondered what was behind that door. They tried to listen at the keyhole or peek under the door, but oh dear, those who tried too hard to find out the secret disappeared just like that. One day they were there, and the next day they were gone. Nobody knew where they went, and after a while, no one dared to talk about them anymore. The other servants whispered among themselves, "Never go near that room. If you do, you might vanish too, like the wind that disappears at the end of the day." So they just cleaned around the door, never touching it, always walking past it quickly with their heads down. Atinike knew about the room, of course. Her parents had told her, "That's a special room, my dear. We must never go inside. It's for the best." And because she loved and trusted her parents, Atinike never asked why. She just nodded and played. Her little heart beat faster whenever she passed by the forbidden room. So the room stayed locked and silent, holding its breath and its secret, while the big house buzzed with life around it. It was like a quiet shadow in a sea of sunshine, always there, always waiting. Years passed and Atinike grew to be a beautiful young lady, but she needed help to take care of her big, lovely house. So one sunny morning, she decided to find new helpers. That's when she met Oriade and Oriyomi, the only twins in the whole village. They were known for being very kind and very hardworking, and everyone liked them because they always smiled and said nice things. Oriade was as bright as the morning sun, always ready to lend a hand or share a laugh. His brother Oriyomi was just as cheerful but a bit quieter, always thinking, always watching carefully to learn things quickly. They were like two peas in a pod, never far from one another, and they took care of each other just as well as they took care of everything else. Atinike liked them right away. She saw how neatly they did their work and how politely they spoke to everyone. "You two will be perfect for my house," she told them with a hopeful smile, trying to make her big quiet house feel like a home again. The twins were happy to help Atinike. They moved into the servants' quarters and started their new jobs the very next day. They swept the floors, polished the furniture, and made sure everything in the house was just right. Oriade loved to sing while he worked, and his voice was so sweet that even the birds would stop to listen. Oriyomi, on the other hand, was great at fixing things. No broken gate or leaky roof lasted long with him around. As they worked, they respected all the house rules, especially the one about the forbidden room. They had heard whispers about it from the other servants. "That's the room no one goes into," they were told, and they nodded seriously, understanding the importance of the room. Atinike felt a little lighter with the twins around. Their cheerful faces brought new joy to her home, and their loyalty was clear. They cared about her and the house deeply. It seemed like with Oriade and Oriyomi there, the shadows in the corners of the big house were a little less dark and the silence a little less quiet. So life at Atinike's house began to find a new rhythm, with the laughter and chatter of the loyal twins filling the air. But the secret of the forbidden room lingered, a silent question that hung in the air like a soft whisper, waiting, always waiting. The 12th anniversary of Atinike's parents' passing was approaching, and the whole house was busy preparing for the remembrance ceremony. It was a big event in the village, and everyone wanted everything to look perfect to honor their memory. Oriade and Oriyomi were especially busy cleaning every corner and making sure the house sparkled. As they cleaned, they moved from room to room, dusting, sweeping, and arranging. But there was one room they hadn't touched, the forbidden room. Oriade, ever curious, noticed that despite all their cleaning, the door to that room stayed firmly shut, its lock shiny and unmarked by fingerprints. One day, while they were preparing, Oriade turned to Oriyomi and whispered, "Have you ever wondered what's inside that room? We have cleaned everywhere else, but that room, we've never even opened the door." Oriyomi looked at the door, his eyes filled with curiosity, but also caution. "Yes, but remember what the others said. It is forbidden for us, for anyone. We shouldn't think about it too much." But the question that already planted itself in Oriade's mind. Later that day, he found a moment to ask Atinuke, "Miss Atinuke, there is one room we haven't cleaned. With so many people coming for the ceremony, shouldn't we clean it too?" Atinuke, who was arranging some flowers, paused and looked towards the forbidden room. Her face turned a bit serious and her voice was firm. "No, Oriade, that room is fine as it is. It's not just about cleaning, it's about respecting the boundaries. There are things in that room that should stay hidden. It's important that you and Oriyomi stay away from it. Promise me you will." Oriade saw the worry in Atinuke's eyes and nodded quickly. "Of course, Miss Atinuke, we won't go near it." With that, he tried to push the thought away and focused on his task. Respecting Atinuke's wishes, the twins concentrated on their duties, but the mystery of the forbidden room lingered in their minds, especially in Oriade's. He found himself glancing at the door more often, wondering what could be inside. As the day of the ceremony drew closer, the house buzzed with activity. Friends and family arrived, bringing gifts and flowers, sharing stories of Atinuke's parents. The night before the big day, Oriade could not sleep. He lay in his bed, thinking about the room. Finally, he couldn't stand it anymore. He whispered to Oriyomi, "We have to know. Just a quick look and then we'll leave it alone forever." Oriyomi, though hesitant, saw the determination in his brother's eyes. He nodded. "All right, but we have to be very careful." Early the next morning, before the sun had fully risen and before anyone else was awake, the twins tiptoed through the quiet house. The air felt cooler as they approached the forbidden room, and the hallway seemed longer and darker. They reached the door, and Oriade gently touched the handle. To their surprise, it wasn't locked. The door creaked open, revealing darkness inside. Oriade took a deep breath and stepped in, with Oriyomi close behind him. The room was cold and musty, and their footsteps echoed as if the room had been waiting for them. Inside, they could see strange shapes in the shadows, old furniture covered in clothes, and shelves filled with mysterious objects. Oriade called out to Oriyomi, but he couldn't hear him. When he stepped into the room, he could see, but not hear. He guided Oriade back to the door, hoping to leave the room, but the door shut with an ominous thud, trapping them inside. The next morning, Atinuke woke up early, feeling a strange unease. She noticed that Oriade and Oriyomi were missing from their chores. She called for them but heard no answer. Concern grew into worry, and she gathered the other servants to search for the twins. They looked everywhere, from the attic to the basement, but there was no sign of Oriade and Oriyomi. Atinuke's heart sank as the day wore on, and the remembrance ceremony began without them. The villagers who attended noticed the absence of the loyal twins and shared Atinuke's concern. As the ceremony ended and the evening approached, Atinuke's worry turned to fear. She knew Oriade and Oriyomi wouldn't leave without telling her, especially on such an important day. The village elders, wise and old, were called to offer their guidance. Atinuke, standing before them with tears in her eyes, pleaded, "Please help me find them. They wouldn't just disappear." The elders, who had seen many mysterious in their time, nodded solemnly. One elder with a long white beard spoke softly. "We have heard of the forbidden room. Perhaps it holds the key to this mystery." Atinuke hesitated. The forbidden room was a place of secrets and shadows, but she couldn't ignore the possibility. With the elders' guidance, she led them to the door. Her heart pounded as she reached for the handle. The room had always been a source of wonder and fear, and now it might hold the answer to a tragic question. Finally, Atinuke decided to confront the forbidden room. With the village elders' guidance, she opened the door to discover the tragic truth. Oriade and Oriyomi had perished, victims of the room's sinister curse. The room was filled with dark, twisted things, old and dangerous secrets that should never have been touched. The sight was so shocking that Atinuke's heart broke all over again. The village mourned the loss of the loyal twins, and Atinuke realized the importance of respecting the unknown. The village was struck with profound grief when the lifeless bodies of Oriade and Oriyomi were discovered within the forbidden room. Their faces, though peaceful, were pale, a stark contrast to the lively spirit they had once been. The room was filled with an overwhelming sense of sorrow as the reality of their fate sank in, drawing gasps and murmurs from the assembled villagers. The village elders, with faces hushed in a mix of sorrow and concern, turned to Atinuke. The dark and mysterious nature of the room had now claimed two innocent lives, and the weight of this revelation was heavy on everyone. Atinuke, with tears streaming down her face, could only shake her head in disbelief. Her worst fears had been realized. The village, united in mourning, came together to grieve the loss of Oriade and Oriyomi and to support Atinuke in a time of sorrow. The secrets of the forbidden room were now out in the open, and the once ominous shadows began to lift, dispelled by the light of truth and the compassion of the community. However, as the news of the discovery spread, it quickly gave way to suspicion and anger. By morning, whispers had turned into a dark cloud of suspicion hanging over Atinuke. The villagers gathered in the central square, their voices rising in a chorus of accusations. "How could this happen right under her roof?" one person questioned. "She must have known," another accused. Rumors spread that perhaps Atinuke had used the twins for some dark ritual, a continuation of her family's mysterious practices. Despite her fervent protests and pleas of innocence, the community's fear and anger grew too strong to be ignored. Standing in the middle of the village square, surrounded by once friendly faces now marked with judgment and fear, Atinuke was pressed by the village elders. "We must ensure such a tragedy never occurs again," declared the head elder gravely. "Atinuke, you are accused of harboring dark secrets that led to the deaths of our beloved Oriade and Oriyomi. What do you have to say in your defense?" Overwhelmed by the hostile crowd, Atinuke could barely speak. "I knew nothing of any darkness in that room," she cried, her voice trembling. "I respected my parents' wishes to keep it closed just as they instructed. I am innocent." Her words, however, fell on deaf ears. The pain of loss and the need to reassign blame were too overpowering. The village, blinded by grief and stirred by fear, made a fateful decision. "We cannot allow this shadow to linger over our village," declared an elder as the sun began to set, casting long shadows around the square. Atinuke was tied to a wooden post at the village's edge. Despite her continued pleas for mercy and understanding, the air filled with the sound of the flint striking steel. Tears streamed down Atinuke's face as the first spark caught the dry wood piled around her feet. The fire quickly took hold, and as the flames rose, Atinuke's despair turned to fury. "I cursed this village," she screamed over the roar of the fire. "Just as you have accused me wrongly, may you too face false accusations and feel the same helpless rage." Her tragic end was met with a heavy silence. The crowd, now filled with horror and remorse, watched as the flames engulfed her. The sky darkened and a cold wind swept through the square, as if nature itself mourned the grave injustice. The village did not celebrate justice that night, but mourned a loss far deeper than they had realized. Atinuke's curse, whether real or born of her bitterness, lingered in the hearts of all as they returned to their homes, each carrying a shard of the tragedy with them. Years passed, and Atinuke's story became a whispered legend. The spot where she was last seen remained untouched, a burned patch of ground that no one dared to approach. The village appeared unchanged but felt different. People often reflected on Atinuke's tragic end, recognizing the grave mistake born of fear and hasty judgment. We have several lessons to learn from these stories. For parents, be mindful of decisions that could affect your children, as they may face consequences beyond their control. For workers, follow rules and regulations carefully to avoid trouble, as ignoring them can lead to significant problems. For communities, avoid letting anger or fear dictate decisions. Take your time to understand all sides of a situation to ensure fairness and prevent wrong decisions or actions. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and share with your family and friends. Help me leave a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Turn on the notification so you can enjoy more of our stories on this channel. Thank you for watching.